Well, hello, Miss Rusty. So, tell me, let's talk about that lesson. How did you think it went?
So I feel like the start of the lesson was good. Just visually, kids could understand and learn vocabulary because they could actually see it and do it with the makeshift of the clock, like the human clock or whatever. However, in going through walking around the classroom and doing like quick checks of students, I realized they weren't really understanding the concept. Um, so I think the thought behind the lesson was good, but it maybe wasn't presented or the best way, since they were not understand. About 50% weren't like getting or learning the skill, which was telling time.
So, tell me more about that. When you said that you think the lesson was there, what do you think could have been improved? Like, what reflecting back, what do you think you may do differently with the components of the lesson to make it maybe clear to your students?
I think doing more. I think I skipped. We just went from like seeing it once, like on the floor, to just going back to their seats and having them do it. I think I should have modeled a little bit more, done more of that middle step in between. So done more of like an I do before I just like gave them the keys kind of thing.
I agree with you that I thought you had a lot of, I really liked you were trying to give a multiple representation of a clock. You were trying to bring it to the kids, put it in their hands. And I think that was a really great visual for most of the students to see. Um, and I agree with you that teacher modeling is such an important part of a lesson, especially when it's newer learning. Um, Not a whole lot of background knowledge built to it yet. So you being that really clear model, I think will be huge for these kids when it comes to to tell time. So yes, definitely thinking about that modeling and that I do the teacher only, and really removing your students out of that model, really telling them to watch me, watch my thinking, and knowing when you're modeling, you want to model your brain thoughts out of your mouth. They need to hear your thinking out of your voice. It's like I've told you before. You might sound a little crazy, like you're talking to yourself, but that's what they need to see. They need to see every little step of how your brain is processing the parts of a clock.
Yep.
Tell me more about how how do you think you'll change the like what? So we were in the lesson. They had a worksheet to do, and you decided to not do that. So what made that decision for you?
I made that decision because as I walked around the classroom, I saw that students weren't grasping the initial concept of where to put the hour hand and the minute hand to tell time. So they weren't grasping the concept at all. Like about 50% weren't grasping the concept at all. So that's where I realized, okay, I need to take a step back and we need to go back to the beginning and relearn that before we can actually move on to the in-depth parts of the clock.
And right there, you did a really good check for understanding. That was your check for understanding. You gave them a task. You circulated around the room. How's it going? Not so well, is what you realized. So you did. You backed up and you restarted, which is exactly what a good teacher would do. You did not plow through. You knew there were misconceptions about the hands, just the short and the long in general. You knew there were misconceptions about how to even write them on the clock. You started to see that right away, and you went back to reteach those steps again. And I thought that was a very good move because time is hard for kids, especially because we don't use normal clocks anymore. Everything's digital. An analog clock is not a lot that the kids look at. There are parents' smartphones. They all, everything's digital. So them learning that analog is just very foreign. I don't even know. I bet you half of them don't even have an analog clock in their house anymore.
Yeah.
So tell me more about what do you think we can do? So if they're not understanding, what are some ways that you're going to try to get this to them? What are you doing? I know you're going to try something today. What did you decide to do?
So basically today I'm going to semi-start over. So we're going to do the human clock thing again to just reinforce the vocabulary, because I think they know the vocabulary words.
What's your vocabulary? Tell me what you want them using.
So hour hand, minute hand, AM, PM, and then the numbers of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, so your academic vocabulary for this is hours, minutes, AM, PM, the numbers on the clock.
Correct.
Okay. So when you are accepting answers, what are you looking for? When your students, if you say, okay, if you're going to draw a clock and you're going to put a time on it, and you want them to tell you the time, how would you expect your student to answer you? What will be your...
So I want them to make sure they're saying the full thing.
That full sentence. Like,
okay.
See if they're really using that academic. Okay, what is the hour? What is the hour hand on? The hour hand is on the 3. What is the minute hand on? The minute hand is on the 12. Or the minute hand's on the 3, which is 15 minutes after. Like, see if they can really apply like the language in their answer to you, and maybe like a more complex statement.
Okay.
So it's 9:30. Okay, we can't say it's 9:30 o'clock. I know that. So maybe teach them when to say o'clock.
Okay. So, like, for example, so if this is our minute hand, they need to say it's 15 after 12, or it's 12:15, not just say it's on the 3.
Right.
Okay.
Because remember, you have to teach them that after or before, too. And I think after is going to be a lot easier than the before.
Okay.
Teachers see that, but they think they need to just get through the lesson. I need to get this done. If I don't get this done, I'm behind. But I think you're making those connections that just getting it done doesn't mean they're learning anything. It just means you got some stuff on paper that you probably had to tell them how to do it all, and now it's done, but did they learn anything? That's like a good question I need to ask yourself. Yes, I'm teaching, but are they learning? Because my job is not to teach. My job is to have students learn, and that can be two very different perceptions sometimes of what's going on in the room. So I'm glad that you're recognizing that, and there's nothing wrong with going back and re-explaining. I think you having a really clear model is going to be huge for them when you're modeling, and give them several. Sometimes one model isn't enough. We were talking this morning that you're going to have them writing it on the already pre-printed clocks, and you're going to do 3 or 4 models before you bring them in. So you're going to do that I do, me, watch my thinking, watch my thought process, watch how I count by 5s, watch me make a mistake, and how do I get out of that mistake? Watch me go past what I need and have to go back to where I'm supposed to be. So really, when you're doing those teacher models, you want to think about all the little issues your little 7-year-old brains might run into that our adult brains probably wouldn't. But as a 7-year-old, what are some things I'll probably do that will be wrong? And those are what you kind of want to build into your model, not only a good model, but also a non-example. This is what you shouldn't be doing, and this is how I get myself out of a mistake. Okay. So they need to see that too. And having them really practice that academic vocabulary, holding them accountable in their speech to their partners when you're having them talk. And that might be a sentence stem. Tell your partner what time it is. It is blank o'clock. Okay. You might need to sentence stem them for a little bit so they're giving you that academic language you want to hear. Or tell your partner what number the hour hand is on, what number the minute hand is on. The hour hand is on the 3. The minute hand is on the 2. Okay. Or however it is, but just really hold them accountable for that academic language. We want them using it in meaningful ways, in meaningful context, so it becomes natural to them. Okay. I know technology was not an easy thing to put into this lesson. You did use your dot cam to project, which is still good. I think it's really powerful when the kids can actually, when you're working on the same thing that they're working on, not a recreated thing on your board, you're actually doing what they're looking at, which I think is a powerful model for kids too, because they can follow along a lot better. So I think that's a good piece of technology you're using. I'm excited to see how this lesson goes today. You're going to have to let me know if they got a little bit better. And what are you thinking about? Tell me, okay, so we didn't really wrap up the lesson either. That was another, that was something, I know it was a time thing, but tell me more about that today.
So I thought at the end of the lesson is what I'm going to do is that showdown that you taught. So I'm going to have just, because they'll already have their whiteboards out. So I'm just going to have a clock on the overhead, and I'm going to draw a time like 8:20. Okay. And then they have to write 8:20
on their boards,
and I'll do the showdown and then have them all write the boards and just kind of scan the room.
Great. So that will be your little bit of assessment at the end there, like your exit ticket to see their progression.
Yep.
So tell me, what will you do if you're back at that 50%? Like, what if 50% of your class doesn't get it? What do you think you might be the...
Well, I could pull them, the kids that aren't getting it. I could pull them. We have this. It's the small group. It's more reading, but I could still pull them during small groups and pull them and just work with them one-on-one.
Right. Could you put, that's a really good idea. You could put the kids who are ready for independent time telling. They could be doing the whatever you want them working on independently, but then you bring the kids over to you that aren't ready to be independent, and you kind of model for them more, work with them a little bit more on that same stuff that the other kids are doing.
Okay.
Another idea is just to kind of keep building the capacity for the students and to keep it is maybe just starting out your morning. Every morning when they walk in, there's a clock on there, and they have to write it down, or they have to tell the time. Maybe that's morning meeting. Maybe there's 4 o'clocks, or maybe you talk about what time. Maybe they need to, maybe that's homework. They talk about what time do they go to bed, what time do they get up, what time do they brush their teeth.
That. I could start doing that in morning meeting.
They could talk to their parents. What a great family conversation. Mom, what time do I go to bed? What time do I get up? Maybe they don't even know those things yet.
Okay.
So maybe having, and that again kind of brings that meaningfulness back to them about why they need to learn time and why time's so important and how it really encompasses pretty much everything we do is based on time. So that could be just a way to make it more meaningful.
That's a good idea. Okay, I'll do that. I'll have them start talking this weekend with their families and.
What time do you have breakfast? What time did you guys go to church? I mean, all those different. It's all relative to time, and maybe they can start looking at the clock more, thinking about time and how it relates to them too.
That's a good idea. And our closing circle every day. We a couple days a week we do math. We just do simple math facts. So I'll just start putting time in there.
Maybe it's spiraling that academic concept, even though you're not teaching it directly anymore in isolation, but you're still keeping it alive in the classroom. I mean, when you get that analog clock up, you could say, okay, what time is art? How much more time do we have till we get there? See if they can maybe start counting. Maybe leave a few minutes before each special to figure that out. Okay, it's 11:30, lunch is at 11:40. How much time do we have till we get to lunch?
Okay.
Can they count 5, 10? Oh, we have 10 minutes, that's 40.
Okay.
Maybe just try to practice it that way. And those are real ways. That's very real life,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So just finding those little spots where you can kind of just bring it back in whenever possible in a very realistic manner too.
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right, well, I think it's good. I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes today.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.